The origins of red and white blood cell are officially revealed, and the most dangerous of viral infections rears its ugly head in what might be the first major arc of Cells at Work. This episode of Cells at Work returns to entertain, inform, and leave us with a great cliffhanger ending, which is probably going to be the first major story arc of Cells at Work. Yes, they're actually building in an actual story at this point in the series, and it looks like it's going to involve one of the most dangerous and scary of all viral infections, the cancer cell itself. It's something that I expected that we were going to see in the series, but considering how incredibly hardcore cancer is, I imagined it would be something that would be a little more close to the end of the series. But no, it finally pops up in this episode with the addition of a brand new introduced cell, which goes by the name of the NK cell. Now, the NK cell has one job specifically, which is to kill viral infected cells, such as cancer cells. This is a character that's appeared in the intro for a couple of episodes, and to finally see her in action is awesome. She has a very, very simple but super cool design. She seems incredibly athletic and very much like the killer T-cells, excels in killing things. She even has this big, massive sword, which is really fun to see in action, and she also does not see eye to eye with anyone. She's kind of a lone wolf. She has one job and she sticks to it, and watching her interactions with white blood cell and with the killer T-cell in particular is really funny to watch. There's just immediate tension between all of these characters. But most of that stuff doesn't come until the end of this episode. Most of this one is actually dedicated to getting to see where the red and white blood cells actually come from. And again, this is stuff that I didn't know about, and the way that they actually teach it in this episode is inspired, of course. So, first and foremost, it is still a little strange that red and white blood cell constantly keep running into each other, but apparently they even knew each other when they were kids, before they even became the respective cells that they are at this point in the story. Apparently, red and white blood cells actually live in the bone marrow until eventually they become mature enough to become full-blooded cells. What I love about this scene, again, is how it is personified. All of the red and white blood cells which live inside the bone marrow basically hang out in a daycare and are taught by the macrophages how to actually do their job until they're eventually mature enough. And of course, we get to spend some time with red blood cell, who's just the way she is when she's a child as she is when she's actually older. She's very unsure of herself. She doesn't know how to do anything, and she gets lost very easily. But I'm sure there are bigger things on the horizon for red blood cell, something that they even sort of hint at a little bit in this episode over the fact that both her and White always seem to run in one another, and there might be an actual reason for this. That being said, the overall design of where the actual red blood cells live and how they're actually birthed and everything is very ingenious. It basically looks kind of like a giant cloning lab with these babies coming out on like a conveyor belt system, which then are converted into preschoolers. They even happen to wear these like little red berets, and when they actually graduate, they remove the top poofy portion of them to symbolize that they have become full, official red blood cells. It's really great how they actually explain it, and it gives me a much better understanding of how all this stuff happens. Again, the show manages to trick me into learning something, but before you know it, a big action scene ensues. They go through this big exercise where they have to show how the red blood cells are able to navigate the body, and of course the red of this series gets lost, and she ends up running into this virus, which is one that we actually saw from a previous episode, and it's a very common virus that goes around picking on weaklings and scaring the absolute shit out of them. I mean, wouldn't you be scared by this thing? It's friggin' nightmare fuel. But Red does everything in her power to try and run away from this thing, and it's actually played out mostly for laughs until suddenly she's saved by a very young white blood cell who just appears from out of nowhere, basically beginning the destined relationship between these two characters. And even though he is a white blood cell at the time, he's an immature one and still doesn't have the ability to take out this monster. Luckily, they are saved by a resident white blood cell who's also the instructor during this entire exercise here, and I love this guy. He's wearing like a virus puppet on his hand, and he takes his job so seriously when he actually starts acting it out just to scare the shit out of these children. But enough about that kawaii bullshit. Let's move on to the end of the episode where they finally start to move in the next part of the story. There's a brand new viral infection in town, and guess what? It's cancer. It looks like white blood cell, killer T cell, and this brand new character NK cell are actually going to try and track this thing down, find out where its source is, and try to take it out. The problem is, all the characters end up getting separated, but NK knows that something is not quite right. They've been given some information by a normal cell, which of course turns out to be the evil cancerous cell itself, and before you know it, the episode's over. So what's the rundown on this episode of Cells at Work? Like I said, the first half of the episode was really informative of showing us where red and white blood cells actually come from, and again, the way that it's personified as sort of like a preschool setting is appropriate and very funny and makes it really easy to understand. But what's most surprising about this episode is that we're finally having a cliffhanger episode. It's leading into a much larger story that's going on here, and it's involving cancer of all things. This is going to be a really intense battle, I have a feeling, especially because the preview for the next episode makes sure not to show anything. They're keeping it oh so secretive, and I really can't wait to see how capable the NK cell is going to be. She's immediately just a really cool character. She exudes that type of personality. She's also pretty sexy. It's weird to say that about a freaking anime character that's a personification of a cell in a human body, but I mean, come on, look at her. I especially love her weapon as well. It's kind of like basically an oversized knife, but it's practically a sword in some points. And watching her butt heads with Killer T-Cell is really, really funny as she constantly demasculates him, and just watching them fly around fighting like Dragon Ball characters is a joy to see. But I really can't wait to see how she's actually going to go up against the Cancer Cell and how they're actually going to be able to stop this thing, as it seems like it's going to be very dangerous. The first time you actually see the Cancer Cell creatures in this episode, they look really disturbing. They look like sort of like the mutated monsters from Resident Evil, and they definitely exude the fact that they're very dangerous and they can proliferate and create all sorts of nastiness inside of the human body. I really can't wait to see how this entire story is going to wrap up here, and just the fact that we got a cliffhanger alone has really got me excited for the next episode. So I'm giving this episode right here a 5 out of 5. I loved it. Great production value, really great story in the first half of the episode, and a fantastic way to end the next one, getting us hooked for the next big episode of Cells at Work. I'd love to hear your thoughts about it. If any of you guys did watch this episode, tell me what you thought about it in the comment section below, and on what, of course, you're waiting to see from the rest of Cells at Work. Let's get a discussion going, guys. I'll see you guys next time, and as always, stay down there, baby.